So the purpose of the presentation is to give an overview of Flanders HealthTech, and more specifically the focus of the first project call, which is due to side effects, is going to be at a very high speed in order to get everything finished already. I'm going to have a presentation. We are going to present a presentation in three parts. First part is going to be a quick recap on Flanders HealthTech and what the focus is of Flanders HealthTech. The second part is going to be on the call itself and the type of projects and the details for eligibility and so on, and the procedure. And then the third part of the presentation will be presented by Alain Tielemans from Vlaio, who will go more in depth on the specifics for funding schemes and requirements on that side. So let's get started with first introductions, a quick introduction on Flanders HealthTech. So Flanders HealthTech is a new spearhead cluster, and we are focusing on the health tech technology crossover domain. And the crossover domain has been defined as the cross-section between biotechnology, medical devices, and then the nano ecosystem, or photonics, electronics, and ICT on its own. We don't limit ourselves to the small area where all three of them join together, but to the larger propeller-shaped area where 2 out of 3 of the crossover domains are active. And this is already an important connotation, because crossover is the key focus for the spearhead cluster Flanders HealthTech. Hence, also for all of the projects, crossover will be important as a concept to work with. The ambition of Flanders HealthTech is to become the lead network in Europe and beyond, especially on the converging health technologies in that crossover zone. We want to create a competitive network and really make Flanders attractive, not just for the companies that are already here. We want to make them stronger, give them a better view on the future, and enable them to grow faster and to accelerate to the future. We also want to create an attractive ecosystem so that new companies can join in Flanders, but also that new people who are willing to work in the crossover zone want to come to Flanders, because if we have growing companies, we also need to have a highly skilled pool of employees. That's the key focus of the health tech sector. We are not going to do that by just creating companies or by just innovating by ourselves. We are going to do that together with, on the right side, the healthcare ecosystem, so the hospitals, the academic hospitals, the residential care, but also the needs and the policies defined there. And on the left-hand side, we have the academia, the universities, the research centers with whom we can collaborate. And we want to create a real action in there to behave as a cog, as a flywheel, to accelerate the innovation, to bring them faster to market, to explore new possibilities within the vision for health tech, and then inspire companies to join together to create solutions for those needs. More specifically, Flanders HealthTech, although it is intended towards companies, does encompass the entire ecosystem, which means that we have companies on board already as members, where we want to stimulate the crossover innovation opportunities and business opportunities. We have already university and research center members that can help us in creating new technologies or bringing new technologies to the companies. And of course, we also already have some hospitals, and will have more in the future, and care institutes, to really help us define and identify the challenges to work together in the co-creation and co-development of the solutions. And of course, last but not least, also help to validate the solutions for effectiveness and clinical trials where needed. In essence, we always talk about Flanders HealthTech crossover propeller. It's the propeller shape we have from the three ecosystems, but it also is the image that we want to propel, to advance, to make it go faster in the future. More specifically, we want to help you with finding partners. We want to build and identify roadmaps towards the future so that you as a company don't have to do that on yourself, but that you can use the collective intelligence of the full ecosystem of all different stakeholders in the healthcare environment that are present. And with that, we want to build a strong voice also to influence Europe on bringing new calls in the areas where actually we want to have it, or a strong voice towards policy to make sure that laws and legislations are indeed enhancing innovation rather than blocking it. And of course, last but not least, we also want to help you with gaining access to funding. This call is one of them, but we will have additional aspects in the future. Already today, you see the voice of Flanders HealthTech popping up as new European initiatives are starting and are already contacting us in order to figure out how they can service Flanders and how they can bring value to the Flemish stakeholders in the health tech arena. With respect to teams, Flanders HealthTech has chosen 4 overarching teams: personalized medicine, digital medicine, disruptive health solutions, and value-based efficient healthcare. 4 specific teams where we as a region can choose to become the lead in the future. There are definitely 4 teams which are important already today, which will remain important for the next decade, but it's up to us as an ecosystem to choose. Do we want to lead, and that's what the vision is of Flanders HealthTech, or do we just wait until foreign solutions from or international solutions appear and then bring them to Belgium? We definitely want to enhance innovation in order to lead in all 4 of them. As you can see, the 4 of them are not fully mutually exclusive. A lot of solutions will fit in more than one category. That's okay. The 4 have been chosen to really be inspired, that we can create those visions and inspire the companies and the full ecosystem on that, rather than to be mathematically exclusive one by one. There's a Flanders HealthTech membership, which we have designed, and in response to the question of a lot of companies to simplify the ecosystem in health tech, we have created a combined membership, meaning that if you are a Connect, Cultivate, Carry level member in Flanders HealthTech, you also have access to the memberships of Flanders Bio, MedTech, and DSP Valley on their own. Or to put it in the other way, if you are today a member of Flanders Bio, MedTech, or DSP Valley, and you are active in health tech, it makes much more sense to become member of Flanders HealthTech while keeping still the value of your old membership. Membership fees are divided into different categories based on company size. I won't go into detail on that. You can find that on the website. If you need additional information, just contact us. The key focus of this call, of course, is the 2021 project call. We launched last week, and immediately we launched the project call at the same time. The project call is going to be based on the Vlaio ONO instrument, which means the normal R&D activities, R&D company projects with company funding. And we have created 2 flavors out of that. One is to focus on enhancing collaboration, enhancing the exploration of the crossover between the 3 ecosystems, and we've called them fast experimental explorations. Fast, why? Because we are aiming at projects that have a very short throughput on their own, meaning that your project should be able to deliver results within a period of 6 to 12 months. So fast experimental exploration within the 6 to 12 months. With the consortium partners, you need to be able to build a demonstrator of a new concept, a demonstrator of an innovation, so that you can then decide afterwards what to do further with it. Next to that, there is a second type where we are focusing on a number of identified concrete opportunities where we think that it will not be able to create sufficient results within 6 to 12 months. Therefore, we put them in a longer time period, 1 to 2 years on their own. If you look at the first type, fast experimental exploration on its own, the key focus is to have a crossover activity in health tech. Not 3 out of 3, but 2 out of 3. You combine biotech with ICT, you combine electronics with medical devices with biotech, and so on. All combinations are valid. What do we focus on? On new opportunities and on things that can help the future roadmaps and the future visions to build. With respect to your demonstrator, at the end of the period of 6 to 12 months for the fast experimental exploration projects, we expect you to deliver a demonstrator at TRL 5, TRL 6, or TRL 7. TRL 5 means technology validated in a relevant environment. TRL 7 means a system prototype already demonstrated in an operational environment, so closer to market. But for the fast experimental projects, you have the choice between 5 to 7 where to end. It depends on where your innovation is positioning. Of course, the key focus of Flanders HealthTech is to create new opportunities for companies. This also means that each of the projects, whether it's a fast one or a longer one, it needs to target valorization. It needs to target solutions that can make it to the market in the end. Of course, if your demonstrator is in TRL 5, it will take longer to reach the market than if your demonstrator is at TRL 7, but that's up to you on your challenges in the project with your consortium to decide. For the specific teams of the fast experimental exploration projects, we are very broad, meaning that all topics which fit in the 4 overarching themes, and they are kind of sub-detailed here in examples on more specific aspects, all of them are eligible for the fast experimental exploration. So this is really a very broad call, really focusing on enhancing, on speeding up, on enabling collaboration between the 3 ecosystems, with more focus on that rather than on the individual topics. In this slide, you also see the notion of data. This is not to explicitly state that data is required or should be a specific team for all of the projects. We just put it there to make sure that, to put it out, that data is an important supporting concept on all of the teams, but it's kind of depending on your specific project whether or not you need data. Of course, if you need specific data in order to build your project, you should make sure that you have access to the data. Same goes for ethical issues or ethical approval if you would be in that area of challenges to be put on. I forgot to mention it at the beginning, but of course you will receive all the slides afterwards, after the presentation. In terms of eligibility, you will need projects, the fast experimental exploration, project duration between 6 to 12 months. The second criterion is that there need to be at least 3 independent Flemish companies. And for the fast experimental exploration, the healthcare partner can be one of the 3 companies. And then we don't require that all of the consortium partners are Flanders HealthTech member, but at least one of the companies should be a member of Flanders HealthTech. If you are not yet a member today and you still want to create a consortium and nobody else is a HealthTech member, the HealthTech membership should be in order by the time you submit the proposal in October. The maximum budget per partner for fast experimental exploration is foreseen to be 220,000 euros for the 1-year project. So that's roughly 2 full-time equivalents for each of the partners in the project involved. In terms of funding rates, this goes back to the normal VLAIO statements. Alain will come back to that. It means that each partner can get funding somewhere in between 35% up to maximum 60%, but Alain will go more into detail on that. With respect to the second project type on focused collaboration on concrete opportunities, it's slightly different. There the target is also on the crossover for health tech. That remains the key focus of the Spearhead cluster, hence also relevant for all our projects. But instead of the broad scope of the big 4 overarching themes, for the 5, we have chosen 5 priority areas. Interconnected intensive care units, virtual hospital or hospital at home, image analysis and AI, multi-omics for screening and prevention, and then small meaningful data in combination with big data lakes. These are very short statements here. If you download the full description of the project call, which we will send you after this presentation anyway, you will find a more elaborate description on what the specific 5 topics mean. The key difference with the other project type is not just the length of the project. So where the other ones were up to 1 year, these are 1 to 2 years in term. But we expect a demonstrator already at TRL 7. So really, for the long projects, we expect you to evolve down to a system prototype demonstration in an operational environment at the end of the project. Otherwise put, TRL 7 also indicates that basically the products you are targeting should be on the market 1 to 2 years after the project ending. On that aspect. Of course, if there are specific regulations needed further, that can maybe lengthen it on its own. But in short, TRL 7 is really a prototype in an operational environment, which is still rather different with a validation in a relevant environment, which was the case in the previous project at TRL 5. If we look at eligibility here, of course, there is project duration 1 to 2 years. The second thing is that here you need at least 4 partners. 4 of them meaning 3 independent Flemish companies, plus a healthcare partner and or a research institute to bring on that. Second, the next, of course, just as the previous one of the companies needs to be Flanders HealthTech member. And for the long projects, we decided not to put the limitation on the project budget, but to limit the funding of the project to maximum 1 million euro for the total of the project. So the sum of all partners for the full 2-year project, which is roughly the same maximum for all for the other ones, because if you calculate the other one on 4 partners, 4 times 220 equals 800,000, almost 900,000. Half of that is 500,000 euros. Here it's also 500,000 euros a year, so they are similar. If you want to choose between a fast experimental exploration or you want to choose for one of the long projects, there are two immediate indications. One is in terms of topic. Do you go for the broad topics? Then fast experimental exploration is the one. Do you go for one of the priority teams? Then you can go to the longer projects, the concrete focus ones. Second thing is, at which TRL level do you want your demonstrator? If it is TRL 7, you can choose between both. If it's below TRL 7, then it should go into the fast experimental exploration that needs to pop up. In terms of procedure, we know that the procedure is very fast, that the deadlines are very short. So we tried to come up with a procedure which kind of makes it still lean and mean in the beginning. We created a three-step procedure. The first one is really a lean and mean notification, where you inform us, where we can check whether or not there is a match with what you are aiming for. We can do sparring on the idea to give you some feedback and insights on where you should put emphasis, or maybe even already identified these and these could be issues for your project, so make sure that you have spent sufficient attention on that. We can also support you in finding partners. The second step is the abstract phase, where we ask you to submit an abstract, so a kind of 5-pager explanation of the project and the concept, where you mention the project idea, the partners, what is the innovation step, and already give some insights on the valorization. But not yet a fully proposal, no project proposal, not a full work plan, not all business details calculated, because that only needs to be done at the full proposal stage. Notification is open to everyone. Abstract can be entered by everyone. Your abstract will be then examined by an international jury, which will do a ranking of all the abstracts. And then we will make sure that a limited number of abstracts will go to full proposal. Why do we want to limit it? Because writing a full proposal is a lot of work. We know that. Unfortunately, we cannot do without it. But we want to make sure that those that are allowed to write a full proposal have sufficient chances for success to actually get it. So kind of a limited competition at full proposal, maybe something like 3 out of 4 proposals to be approved. Something like that is the order of magnitude on which we are aiming on. So at abstract level, we will do a budgetary estimate to see how we can go for how we can select for full proposal. In terms of deadlines, this means that the mandatory notification needs to be done in the next 2 weeks. So by Saturday, July 17, everybody should have done their notification. Notification is very light. You see the link on the Flanders HealthTech site, call for projects. At the bottom of the page, there is a form where you can schedule a sparring meeting, and the sparring meeting immediately also classifies as notification on its own. So you don't, when you do the notification, you don't need a full project description. The project idea is okay. You don't need a full consortium yet. If you have 1 or 2 partners or just thinking about it, it's already okay to submit the notification. Even for the sparring meeting, it's not mandatory to have all partners present. Given the time schedule, this could prove a challenge to find a time frame that matches. So that's one step, mandatory notification. The second step is deadline Monday, August 23. There's a deadline for the abstract. So the 5-pager explaining the concept of your project template will become available today for that, but it's let's say a normal 5-pager plus some information on the project partners. Next to that, the week after that, you will be invited to pitch your project for the international jury. You will get a time slot allocated, and there is going to be an interaction with the jury where you can have a quick pitch on the project and then some time for questions and answers. Questions from the jury, of course, and answers from your side. And based on the full information, the abstract text, the pitch, the Q&A, the jury will make a ranking of all abstracts. And already the week after, September 8th at the latest, you will receive a go, no go sign for your abstracts. In case of go, it means that at that time you need, you have about 4 weeks to transform the abstract into a full project proposal, which will have deadline at October 4th, 8 o'clock in the morning, again, a Monday. If you do not get approval for full proposal, you will get feedback from the jury on your proposal anyway, so that you can decide, get their insights, and maybe decide what to do with the proposal at a later stage. We expect that the projects will be decided by Vlaio in December 21, and this very tight time schedule kind of guarantees that the decision will be in December 21, which means that your projects can start in January 22. So that in a nutshell is the timing. Key deadlines: July 17 for notification, August 23 for abstract, 1, 2, 3 for the pitches, and then October 4 for full proposal on the projects. In terms of details and templates, you can find all that information on Flanders HealthTech, flanders.health.tech/call-for-projects page. So on our website, you can download the project call there. The templates will be put on that as well, but we will send them to you anyway. And as you can see, this is a copy of the web page. You will also see there the notification form where you can submit your notification and book a sparring session in the meantime. So this is what I wanted to talk about in my 2 parts of the presentation on Flanders HealthTech and the details for the call. With respect to the funding scheme, I will now give the floor to Alain Tielemans so that he can present that in more detail. I've seen already some questions popping up in the chat. I propose that we take them after the presentation of Alain Tielemans. Alain, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Piet. I will try to continue in English, the slides being in Dutch, being based on an existing general presentation for Spearhead Cluster projects, where I added a few things on the specific call. Generally, you will see that a lot of the requirements, general requirements, are already met by the scope definition of this call, and the other way around. This requirements may also help a bit to understand why there are specific choices made by the Spearhead cluster for this specific call. If I struggle to find the correct English words, I'm sure Piet will help me out. Launching the presentation. So, oops. As already said, I'm Alain Tielemans. I'm account manager for the Spearhead cluster Flanders HealthTech from Agentschap Innoveren en Ondernemen, Flanders Innovation and Entrepreneurship, Vlaio in short. In this presentation, I will give a general overview of what Spearhead clusters and Spearhead cluster projects are about, what the general criteria are for these kinds of projects, which types of cluster projects will be available in this call, a little bit what the modalities of those projects are, a very high-level overview of the general process with the collaboration between Spearhead Cluster and Vlaio, And then, and this is not on this slide, a few recent changes or remarks that are of interest to you all. Now, spearhead clusters, it's important to keep that in the back of your head. Spearhead clusters are established to create competitive impact, higher competitive impact in a certain sector, being a health tech in this case. So it's the main aim is an economic added value through collaboration that lasts between enterprises. I'm making the difference between, in Dutch, onderneming and enterprises, which includes also not-for-profit entities that can be treated as enterprise and not just companies, bedrijven that are the for-profit business activities. So we expect spearhead clusters to initiate activities over the entire innovation spectrum. Flanders HealthTech recently started. This is the first call with a very specific aim. Later in the coming years, they will develop more other types of activities. And the priority is this competitivity program, where there is an engagement in a triple helix constellation between governments, companies, and academic partners, which is also written down in a cluster pact that still needs to be finalized in the coming year. And then specific for this spearhead cluster is that it is embedded in an impulse programma for innovation in health and care, which makes it actually a quadruple helix program, quadruple helix where also the end users are included. In general, for all cluster projects, so this is about projects and project calls, we expect that they fit in the cluster roadmap. This is why you see this focus in themes and focus in types of projects defined by this spearhead cluster. They should be aimed at collaboration between enterprises, at least 3 Flemish enterprises, and it should be also clear that there is an added value not only for the enterprises that collaborate in the project, but also some spillovers for the larger group of the spearhead cluster. The existing VLAIO project types are the basis for funding. In this specific call, it's the R&D project, so it's cooperative development projects, which are based on the VLAIO development projects, ontwikkelingsproject, and cooperative research projects, which are based on the VLAIO research projects, onderzoeksproject. So there was already a question in the chat, what's the difference with a VLAIO proposal? Well, if you will see the templates for the full proposal, you will see that there are not so many differences, but of course the specifics for cluster projects and this link with the competitiveness program and so need to be included. And there are also, you will see that at the end of this presentation, some extra requirements, but the bulk will be very similar to a standard VLAIO proposal. Also, in terms of funding rates, it's the same rules as in our VLAIO instruments. So for the development projects, the base rate is 25% of funding. Pete mentioned 35%. That's of course because these are by definition collaborative projects where at least three enterprises work together, and where we expect also SMEs to be included. And if there is a collaboration with an SME, then there's a 10% extra funding. So this leads to, in principle, 35% funding for the project. And this can then further increase to 50% for development projects. For the SMEs, mid-sized SMEs get a 10% extra, small SMEs get a 20% extra, but it's topped off at 50%. For research projects, the base rate is 50% with a 10% extra for collaboration if an SME is included. this goes up to 60%, and that's also the rate where it stopped off. So the maximum for the research projects is 60%. Important to know here, and that's what we expect in these projects. In the two kinds of projects, the endpoint is a demonstrator, so that will probably be development, be categorized as development. So it will probably be, most projects will be probably mainly development projects or a mix between development and research. More about that in a few later slides. We expect projects to have a minimum critical mass. For development project, that's a minimum base to have 25,000 euro funding. For research projects, it's 100,000 funding. That should be the budget base for that in a project. With the setup of these goals, you see that this will be, in principle, be the case for all the projects that are generated. There's also a maximum per project, 3 million, and with the maximum defined in this goal, it will also be automatically fulfilled. And we require minimally 3 Flemish enterprises working together in the project. There was also a question about that. Do the companies need to be located in Flanders? Yes, there needs to be at least an establishment unit in Flanders where the activities in the project take place, and also where the valorization, I'll come back to that later, also at least partly take place. So otherwise it will, other companies from abroad can participate in projects, but then they will not count in this minimum requirement of 3 Flemish enterprises. General criteria, most people know that, it's, we look at that's a European requirement, we look at the stimulating effect of the funding. So projects that would happen anyhow and where the funding has no effect on the project itself are not eligible for funding. That's mainly a check, you could say. And then in the really evaluation, we look at the impact of the project. Not only does the project has the potential to generate an impact, economic impact, societal impact, but also does the consortium have the potential, all the experience on board to realize this impact. Then, of course, we look at the goals, the innovation goals, also to identify whether it's development, purely development, or partly development, partly research. And then also it needs to be clear that the consortium has all the experience and required resources to realize those innovation goals. Development projects typically in the TRL range 4 to 7, as mentioned by Pete. All those projects aim to deliver demonstrators between TRL 5 and 7. So you can see that for each project, by definition, there will be a part that's in this development range project definition. There, to check whether activities can be funded, we will need to really be convinced that this development is something really new. It's not something that others already do. It involves new knowledge that needs to be built up in the enterprise, and there are still some risks involved. It also needs something where the result needs to be worthwhile and that has a real chance of success, and also, of course, with the right approach, the right work program. And it needs to be of significant scale, but that's in this project, I think, automatically covered. For research projects, or in this case, rather the potential research part in the project, we're talking about TRL levels 1 to 3. So these should be activities that are really beyond state of the art in the application domain, and this really needs to be underpinned in the proposal. This research should also fit into a longer-term R&D roadmap of the enterprise, of the company. And then also, of course, the potential result needs to generate impact, and the approach needs to be effective to realize it. Now in this call, aiming for demonstrators, this should be more or less automatically okay. And then again, here is the size versus impact ratio okay. That's also something that will be checked. I will stay with this a little bit longer because, yeah, I already said we expect that all projects will have mainly a development part because all project types are aiming at demonstrators. But of course, there can be a research part in order to get there. If there is a research part with a certain partner or for the entire project, then the entire proposal needs to be registered as a research proposal, and then we can see where the mix is, if it's mainly research and some development for a certain partner, and then other partners doing most of the work towards the demonstrator. Then it could be for a certain partner that the funding rate is fully the research funding rate. If it's a balanced mix of activities, partly research, partly development, there will be a balanced pro rata, you could say, funding rate. If a certain partner is mainly involved in the demonstrator, or if the entire project is mainly going from a TRL for instance, combining existing technologies into a solution aiming for a TRL7 demonstrator, then the entire project could be rated as development. So there is this mix of funding rates that needs to be established in the evaluation. Important in this call, this is something that most of you probably know that has become more stringent this year. Since beginning of this year, in all our instruments, we expect a valorization impact of 10 times the funding. So applicants need to underpin that in typically the 5 years after end of the project, that the project results will lead to an impact that has a value of at least 10 times the funding. Typically, this is economic impact, being employment and investments, but it can also be societal impact. If societal impact is claimed in order to get to this factor 10, it needs to be quantified, being monetized, and this needs to be very well underpinned. So just as an example, suppose you do a project in the value-based efficient healthcare part, you could imagine that for the companies, for-profit companies, technology suppliers, you could say that there needs to be an economic return. They do it to have future business, but it could be that for the entire project, including not-for-profit healthcare actors, that it's hard to get to this factor 10, but that you could show in the healthcare system efficiency effects and quality of health effects, and you can quantify them and monetize them, then you can put them together and in that way get to this factor 10. In case you would have a project where you have only societal valorization to realize this factor 10, then we will still need to see a sound business case for the innovation, because everybody knows, we also have that experience, if there is no business case for an innovation, then the innovation, no matter how good it looks, it will never be implemented. So that's also a minimum requirement that will need to be there. Something completely different, do no significant harm. This is a European requirement because actually for the budget of the Spearhead cluster and also for this call, we will be using RRF, the European Resilience and Recovery Fund means, and there is a European requirement that where you use these means, you should do no significant harm with respect to the 6 major environmental goals. So I just mentioned this. You will see a forum on do no significant harm in the applications. If you wonder where it comes from, this is where it comes from. I would also want to draw your attention to some new rules in the Vlaio cost model, which will apply for this call. This changed for applications from July onwards. So please, if you are used to do projects and you're not aware of this, check our manual on the cost model, the version July 2021. There is an Annex 4 where it's detailed. Just to go through the major changes in personal costs, there will be a fixed basis of hours per year. In terms of overhead costs, people who work on a freelance basis or managers who are not employee but who charge who are contracted are no longer counted to generate overhead costs. They're still in the operational costs and the working costs. The operational costs are limited to 25,000 euro per person year. No details are required at filing, at evaluation, but of course it needs to be true costs, so you need to be able to declare them at verification. If you think you need to go over this 25,000 maximum, this is possible, but only if there is a substantial extra cost that you can then detail of at least 10% of the total partner budget. In terms of investments, this will only be possible if it's really big investments, so at least 10% of the partner budget or at least 20,000 euro exclusive VAT. And also general remark, verification at the end of the project will be more strict, so it's more important even, it should always be the case, but it's more important even if there are changes in the budget, shifts between different posts in the budget, that this is immediately mentioned and that you get an okay from Vlaio. If you only mention it at the end of the project for the financial reporting and it was never mentioned during the project, then it will probably be rejected. In terms of the overall process, just some general things. It might look very different to a Vlaio application because we work together with the Spearhead cluster. For a lot of things, the Spearhead cluster will be your first contact in project generation. We will work together with the Spearhead cluster to do the evaluation and also in project follow-up during project execution. Your first contact will be the Spearhead cluster. The way we work, Vlaio with Spearhead cluster guarantees independent evaluation, of course, guarantees the application of the right funding rates, also the formal follow-up of go, no-go or other requirements in the execution of the project will always be a formal Vlaio decision. And for the follow-up of running projects, your first contact will be the Spearhead cluster, that's on the content, but the financials and the contractual part will be with Vlaio. Then just an extra thing, the Spearhead cluster is also embedded in an Impulse program. I mentioned that before. This Impulse program has three pillars. The core pillar, the second pillar is a Spearhead cluster. The third pillar, cooperating with Flanders Care towards uptake and implementation of innovations in the health and care domain. There Vlaio launches a call this year. It's already launched with application end of this year and decision next year. It's a call for Tetra and Coke project. So Tetra is technology transfer project, transferring existing knowledges and translating it into knowledge that can be implemented, and Coke collaborative research to get new technologies introduced and to speed up knowledge take-up by companies, where there is two parts, a part application-oriented knowledge build-up and a part enterprise-specific project. So for those actors who might be interested in these instruments, I just mentioned it, it's already launched on our website.